MMcast, Masters of Modern Podcast. I am your host, Alex Kessler. And I am here with my co-host, Mr. Benjamin, the boss, Bateman.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Not feeling like the boss in our fantasy football league at the moment. Did lose to you in week 1, but I was able to get a win in week 2. I think it's hilarious that there's your dad, there's you, and there's me. And all three of us can refer to ourselves as the boss on some level.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and it's been
my dad mostly because he took the name the boss. He took it from you.
Yeah, he did. It's true.
and then I really appreciated it when Yahoo Fantasy app sent me a push notification being like, "You're the boss for defeating Ben Bateman." I was like, "Yeah, I am. Damn straight." But then I lost really bad last week. I lost to Jamil. He doubled my score. But today we are doing our Innistrad release. It is one spooky time. Flashback is back. I'm hyped. These cards are really, really cool. We're going to do a little bit of our classic set release. We're going through as many cards as we possibly think could see play in Modern, or cards that people are saying could see play in Modern, and give our 2 cents on it. We'll try to keep some of it quick. And so if we skip over a card you wanted to hear, or you want to hear more information, please let us know, because we'll talk about it in other places for sure. This episode is partially brought to you by TCG Player. There's a link below. It's an affiliate link. It costs you nothing. If you click on that link, you don't even have to buy cards right now. It'll just remember that you existed and we sent you there. And in the future, when they buy something, or when they have something bought on their website by you, it'll remember and they'll let us know and maybe throw us some dollars. And then the other one is Battle Bosses. So Battle Bosses is a game that we kickstarted in 2018. It's finally coming out. Kickstarter backers should be receiving. The first run of the Kickstarter backers have already gone out. The next wave comes out at the end of this month, and then we'll throughout October. We just did Gen Con where we started selling it. So now if you go to the website, you can buy at least the individual bosses, which $20 each. Really, really exciting way to jump in. It's this awesome game we created. It involves these cool little mini sculpts that then fight each other. They're called bosses. It kind of plays like League of Legends, Magic, and a tower defense game all married into a cool board game. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's a blast. And the response to Gen Con was really exciting. So we're hyped. We'll be talking about it a lot moving forward.
Absolutely. It's a sweet game. And as I was mentioning on our pre-show cast, as somebody who is generally on the other side of the coin when it comes to trying new things, I'm kind of an old codger in that way. I have been around since the beginning of the creation of this game, which is awesome to see. And I remember the early testing groups. I remember all of the early designs. I mean, I actually played a decent amount of it during that time. I probably played a dozen times, like in all different variations. And I had a really good time playing it. And then to see it go from that and develop and go out there and pitch this to retailers and now finally actually have the real ones in our hands, like the really designed production copies. You can feel the weight of it and all the things we've talked about for years when explaining it to people. It's just a special thing. It's cool. And the blood, sweat, and tears that went into the design of this game is really meaningful and special. So if you've considered it and it's something you've heard us talk about, now is the time. Check it out. It's an awesome game.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it for years, and now it actually exists. You can actually just go out and buy it, and not even just you. If you have a local game store that's looking to pick up some new games or try something new, this is coming out. We now have it available to buy, at least while supplies last, because we are running out already, which is cool. That's exciting as well. And so yeah, we're talking Innistrad. Anything else, Ben? You want to shout out before we jump into cards?
I mean, my big shout out, you guys are going to hear this. And when you do hear this, I'm about 1 month out from hitting the road. And as many of you know, I'm releasing my first album of music this year. It's something I'm very passionate about, very excited about. And I've got a third song about to come out. But the first shows, Denver, Austin, and Orlando. Austin's almost sold out. Orlando's got a few more tickets left as well. Then it's like New York and Chicago, a bunch of shows on the East Coast. So if it's something you'd like to check out, and they're all going to be kind of like private hangouts. Every one of them is like a meet and greet, basically. You come in, see the show, we hang out afterwards. Go to benbateman2021tour.com. That's where you can get tickets. It's going to be a crazy, extremely exciting experience for me, and something I put a lot into. So I'd love to see you guys on the road and check it out if you haven't already.
All right, now the last thing is we're going to play a little game. It's the weekly round of trivia. And today, the way the trivia game works is you're making a bet with the podcast listeners. If you guess correctly, you don't have to hit a like. But if you get it wrong, you have to hit that like button. So basically what you need to do is I'm going to ask a question. Ben is going to try and figure out if he can answer it. In that time, you need to go below, comment your answer below, see if you can get it right. And then I'll give the answer. And then if you got it right, You don't have to hit the like button. We appreciate it. It really helps the podcast if you hit the like button. But if you get it wrong, you have to. You're
required to.
You're obligated by listening to this and participating.
It's in the social contract when you listen to this episode.
Otherwise, Ben will just be sad and disappointed. All right, Ben, can you name? And you just have to name one side. Can you name 4 pathways?
Oh, of the lands?
Yeah.
Oh man, you're catching me in an era of I recognize the color and the functionality, but okay, let's think here. River glide pathway?
Let's that would be
river glide pathway.
That is correct. That is one of them. That is the blue side of the blue-red one.
Turn timber pathway?
Let me confirm. That's 2.
Is that 1? That's a real one, turn timber?
It does not appear to be.
No.
There is do you want me to tell you the one that it's closest to?
Yeah.
Timber crown pathway.
That's the one. That's just green white, right? That
is the green red.
Green red. Okay. Oak blood, oak or dark shadow. Wait, shadow egg blood. Blood shadow. No. I'm out. What do you got?
All right. The green blue one is bark channel pathway and tide channel pathway. The black red one is blight step pathway and seer step pathway. The black green one is dark boar pathway and slither boar pathway. The white blue is henge gate and mist gate. Green white is branch loft and boulder loft. Red green is crag crown and timber crown. Blue black is clearwater and murkwater. White black
Murkwater.
White black is bright climb and grim climb. Needle verge and pillar verge for red white, and river glide.
Needle verge.
River glide and lava glide. So if you got it right,
I should have had more of those. But this weird thing that happened to me. I used to be so good with trivia names of Magic cards. I did the thing that so many players do as I got older. I stopped memorizing the names. I just know the casting costs and the abilities and what they do now.
That was a little bit more shade at all of us because I think that's a really hard question. I don't know if you asked anyone, most people cannot answer name 4 pathways either side.
I got one right.
You got one. That was impressive.
Answer.
I think I would have gone 0. I don't think I would have gotten a single one. But hopefully our listeners didn't get any of them either because now they have to hit that like button. All right, let's talk about Innistrad, Midnight Haunt. Let's do this. Reviews. We're starting with creatures, and it is at the 17-minute and 30-second mark. First one is Champion of the Parish. This is black for a 1/1 zombie. Whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of the Parish. This is the zombie version of the classic Champion of the Parish. Now he's perished.
That's why it's such a clever. This is the most tongue-in-cheek title of a card in the set. It's pretty fantastic on so many levels, right? Like the fact that the name is so similar, but also it's the idea that it's a human who is now a zombie. Mm-hmm. So he's the champion of the perished. I love that. Look, what you know is that humans are a great supported tribe that are very powerful, and that zombies have had less support over the years because they're just a little bit less vanilla when it comes to like every single set having a push, but they're always around. There's a lot of good zombies. It's very hard to imagine that if not immediately, that eventually this card is not going to be extremely good. It's just exactly what you want.
Yeah, like this is what we've always said with tribal decks, right? Like tribal decks have to be doing something different than what other tribal decks do. Humans have all the human support, plus they have really interesting disruption and the availability to a very large amount of different creatures that can do different things in different things. Spirits, flying, evasion, counter magic that does stuff at flash. Merfolk, being able to mana denial while having really beefy creatures is really strong. If zombies can find its niche, which it definitely has the option, right? Aristocrat style options, combo stuff with Gravecrawler, Champion of the Parish will be a piece of that regardless.
I think what its niche is, you can tell already, and you can even just tell from the design of this card and why the design is so elegant, is that zombies have the persistent effect of constantly coming back and getting constantly made as tokens. They they persist. I mean, some of them have the ability to persist, but they come back often. They resurrect often, and it's very easy to get multiples of them because they come in. I mean, obviously this set has the decay zombies, but it's very easy to make zombie tokens. So a card like Champion of the Parish is especially good because of the fact that you're going to get so many ETBs from kind of dinky creatures, and that will grow this creature very fast.
Yeah. I think
that's the thing zombies
I also think now zombies have like 3 extremely powerful beefy 1-drops, right? You have Gravecrawler, you have Champion of the Perished, and you have
Crypt Breaker. Is that the one you're getting?
No, the sacrifice one, the one that sacrifices creatures and gets +1/+1 counters.
Carrion
feeders
right.
in the format. And with like already zombies were really close, right? They with Modern Horizons, they got a little bit close to being actually just a viable thing. And I think this pushes it like close to, if not over the edge. I think like we're really close to that deck being a thing, and I'm excited to see what happens. Next card is Chaplin of Alms, white for a 1/1 human cleric, first strike ward, disturbed 4 for a 1/1. When it comes back, it is a 2/1 flying first strike. Each creature you control has ward, and then if it dies, it gets exiled. It has the disturbed flashback mechanic. The fact that this card like is a human and then can come back late game and buy you into stuff as a 1-drop, I think is the reason we have it here. It is hard to deal with being ward 1, and then when it coming back, giving all your other creatures ward 1, and being able to be pumped by other humans, I think makes it really strong. And like, it just kind of gives you amount of protection, and a flying 2/1 first strike is not something to laugh at.
Yeah, I think it's good. I do think that the thing this is going to struggle with the most is that the back half of it is cool, but it does cost 4.
Sure.
And the humans deck is so competitive when it comes to its slots. I mean, I can even remember like when Militia Bugler got printed originally, and I remember we were like, oh, this is going to be a thing for a while. And like within like 3 months, it was like, yeah, this is good, but at 3, it's just not enough.
Sure.
It's just doesn't get enough value. So I could see this card working. I do think Ward is an interesting ability, but if the disturb cost on this maybe was 3, I think it would be a little more likely. The disturb cost being 4 on this is the equivalent of playing 2 cards the same turn. It's in your graveyard, of course, but there are just more and more answers to graveyard strategies that have been printed that even that, it doesn't feel like it would even be that specialized to be able to just get this out of the graveyard. So, but I mean, it is reach. It's a 2/1 flyer out of your graveyard, which is pretty strong.
Right. The next card is Deathbonnet Sprout. 1 green for a fungus 1/1. So green 1/1 fungus. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. Then if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform Deathbonnet Sprout. It's also a very cute mushroom. It becomes a still cute, but with teeth mushroom. Deathbonnet Hulk, fungus horror 3/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile a card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it gets bigger from a 3/3. So people are kind of calling this, green Delver of Secrets. It's a 1/1 that comes into play. It gains you more value, right? Because you're milling cards, and that often can be a benefit, especially putting creatures in your graveyard. And then once you have enough creatures, it's a 3/3 for 1 that becomes a 4/4 that becomes a 5/5 every turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because most of the things that mill cards efficiently, most of the spells that have been played in modern decks that mill cards, they're very often spells, not creatures. You have a couple creatures, you have the crabs that do it. But again, one of the crabs is opponents. Hedron crab can mill yourself, but the vast majority of things, whether you're talking about a Thought Scour or something like that, they're spells. They're not going to fill up your graveyard with more creatures. They're going to fill up your graveyard with lands and more spells if you're playing a high density of spells. So the flip on this, having to have creatures, means that it's inconsistent in the same way that Delver is inconsistent, but I'm sure there is a strategy that will take advantage of this very well and will turn this into a 1-mana 3/3, which I think is sweet. I also like that on the backside, it has the built-in advantage of exiling cards from your opponent's graveyard. I do think that just there's more and more of that built in now. We're seeing so much of that in card design that they just want all colors to have the ability to do that and do it kind of incidentally. So I think it's one of the things that stands out to me on this card.
Sure. And the benefit of like, if your opponent doesn't have creature cards, it guaranteed you have a deck that does have creature cards, and maybe some of them aren't good for reading by, or you have your other Deathbonnet Hulks in your graveyard that it can eat. The next card is Delver of Secrets, blue 1/1, human wizard. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal that card. If an instant or sorcery card is revealed this way, transform Delver of Secrets. Not the top 3, just the top card of your library. It's a 3/2 flyer. This card has been in Modern since the beginning of the format. It's bad. We can move on now.
I think the biggest thing to point out about Delver of Secrets is that the difference between, because obviously it's been in modern the whole time. In standard, the big difference with Delver of Secrets is that we don't have Ponder in standard. We had Ponder in standard when Delver of Secrets was the first time around.
It existed both with Ponder and Preordain. Yeah, I think that there are two things that are working against it in modern. Is that for most of Modern's history, there hasn't been a good card that lets you transform the top of your deck to give it to you. And by the time it maybe got some tools in that world, it became outclassed, but just better cards. There are better one drops. Like, honestly, the biggest argument against Deathbonnet Hulk is just Delver of Secrets isn't good, and Deathbonnet Sprout is probably worse than Delver of Secrets. And
it's not evasive, so even if it does transform early, it's not going to just it's going to be harder to get in.
It's a bigger threat. You do get the mill. It's a bad creature type. If it was a zombie or something other than a fungus, I'd be maybe talking about Deathbonnet Sprout a little bit more hyped, just because playing it and then another creature does get Vengevines back. Like, there are things that it's doing that are close enough, but yeah, both of them I'm pretty met on. Next, but continuing the world of Delver of Secret, variants, we got Ecstatic Awakener. 1 black for a 1/1 human wizard. Sacrifice another creature, 2 and a black. Draw a card, then transform Ecstatic Awakener.
Real fast before we move on, can I just suggest for a second? So Deathbonnet Sprout makes reference to having creature cards. And Delver of Secrets wants you to have spells on the top of your library. If you flip a Bone Crusher Giant off of a Delver, it flips Delver, correct?
I don't believe so.
Even though because the adventure part of it, because what? The adventure part of it is...
It is a creature card until you need to cast it as a spell. Like, it's the same reason you can't target Bone Crusher Giant with Snapcaster Mage.
That would make sense. Right, because okay, never mind. I was mixing up which side of it was the front half of it. So it would be good for Death Sprout.
Yes,
but not
correct. Yeah. That is a hard. Don't like the way adventure works with how that stuff functions is a difficult thing to keep track of. So it is not. That is good that we brought that up, but yes, that won't work. So back to Ecstatic Awakener, it turns into a 4/4. So it's a 1/1 for 1 mana. You get a 1/1 human wizard that you may pay 2 and a green for a sack and sacrifice another creature to get a 4/4 out of it. 1 mana to a 4/4, pretty good. Second thing is normally not that bad. I think just the 1/1 version of this doesn't seem very good.
Yeah, it's just a 1 mana 1/1 that requires you to pay 3 and have another creature. Now you do draw a card, so
you do get it's basically a 1/1 that lets you play a 4/4 draw a card, sacrifice a creature.
I mean, here's the question: if you had black 2 for a 4/4 that when it entered the battlefield, you had to sacrifice another creature and draw a card. If that was a card that existed, you didn't have to cast this for its 1-drop front half. It was just a 4/4 for 3 that you sacked another creature on entry
with flash.
And yeah, that's how it's flash. I still don't even think that would be incredible. I just think that would be a fine card.
I think that wouldn't see play. Yep. I'm moving on. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that works. Lunarch Veteran, 1 white, 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Disturb 1 and a white. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, you gain 1 life. So this is another Soul Sisters option card, right? It only triggers on your creatures, which is worse, but not by a lot. And the fact that it does have this ability to come back and be an additional, it's removal resistant, might give it a piece to be able to play with. It is the 1 important mana, so you can do stuff with it that's cute. I think it's just close to being on the line of playable in that type of deck. I don't think it's quite there, but I wouldn't be surprised if to see some like fringe play for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that when it comes back on the backside, it only reacts to leaving the battlefield, not entering the battlefield, means that even on the back half, you're not really getting what you want out of a Soul Sisters card. And the front half, because it doesn't react to their creatures, there's enough Soul Sisters. There's Soul's Attendant, Soul Warden, and Essence Warden if you want to play 12. You can just play 12 of them if you want to build that deck with green in it. So,
sure. Next card is Willowgeist. Green for a 1/1 Treefolk Spirit, which is a relevant creature type, right? Treefolk does have some amount of support. Trample. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Willowgeist. When Willowgeist dies, you gain life equal to its power.
This card's sweet.
Yeah, it dies and gives you stuff. It's very easy to make Willowgeist big, right? Just anything from playing this in like any deck that's playing tap, remove a thing, or you can exile to remove all graveyards.
Scavenging Ooze.
Or Scavenging Ooze. I was thinking of Relic of Progenitus.
Oh, Relic, or yeah.
Like just like random good incidental graveyard hate, or just playing this as just like a beater that like you can use with delve cards, or like there's so many ways to remove stuff from your graveyard conveniently. And it leaves your graveyard. So it also can be played. And then like if you get Vengevines back, or if you play a flashback spell, or like an escape spell,
I'll do you one better that I know you'll love. This card plays very nicely with a 1 green, 1 colorless sorcery with Dredge on it. Gets lands back in your hand.
It does, because when you dredge Loam, it triggers, and then when you cast Loam to get the lands from your graveyard to your hand, it also triggers a second time. You're right.
Exactly.
It does. And that card also doesn't hate a tree folk situation. This card, Willowgeist is really dope. I think this card might be even underrated in how people are evaluating it. I think there's a lot of cute ways to do it. It might just be a little underpowered, like right when comparing this to something like Ragavan. But the fact that you can play this for 1 green and it blocks Ragavan, and then you gain some life off of it in the worst case scenario isn't, like the death trigger is not an irrelevant trigger. Gaining life.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's also pretty good with people are playing that is a deck with Murktide Regent right now. So, and Murktide Regent and that whole deck is about cards being removed from your graveyard. So
could you be Rug?
This plays pretty nicely with that.
Or like a hyper version of like green, blue, Murktide Regent, Delve, like self mill, where you're like trying to power that out a lot quicker. Yeah.
There's also, I think the other thing about this card, just I don't know what it is offhand, but there's probably an infinite loop that exists where you are swapping cards graveyard to hand, or like something. I mean, literally any, if you gain infinite life off of like a Finks, or there's any number of different things, and then this is a win condition because it has trample to get through and attack, and attack for 1 billion. So
there's also stuff like, which I actually realized I didn't grab, but I will grab that really quickly. There's the new pumpkin artifact. 1 mana for an artifact, not creature, that you can pay 1, tap it, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, draw a card, and then you can pay 1 to exile it from your graveyard to add 1 mana of any color. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like graveyard hate that draws a card on an artifact that then can fix your mana out of your graveyard and triggers this guy twice.
Okay, gotcha.
So you get like on turn 2, you can pay 1 and then sacrifice this, exiling a fetch land from your graveyard, getting your other thing into a 2/2 and drawing a card. And then on your next turn, you may sacrifice it to fix your mana to pay your 3-drop or play your Murktide Regent or whatever. Right. So like, I think that's cool. I think like there's like cute things you can do with this. And that card is called Jackolantern, which I'm just very hyped that card exists in general. And I like that can be like the next card we talk about, but because I didn't add it to the list and I do want to talk about it. But yeah, I think that makes Willowgeist really interesting. Now let's talk about Jackolantern. 1 mana artifact, 1 tap it, sacrifice Jackolantern, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, draw a card, and from your graveyard you may pay 1 and add 1 mana of any color. So
wait, where is Jackolantern? It's not on this list.
I forgot it on the list.
Oh, you just added it?
I forgot. I remembered it while talking about this card. I shouldn't have, because I love this card. This card's one of my favorite cards from this set in general.
Here it is. Got it. Okay. Jackolantern. So it's an artifact. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So this is like relatively interesting graveyard hate, right? Like it's worse than Relic, though it can be targeted. It does draw you a card on that effect. So there are other cards that exist that are 1 mana artifacts that do this. The thing that's really interesting to me is its second effect. Being able to, from your graveyard, fix your mana as a secondary part of the plan is something that's like really cool, hasn't been seen a lot of play before, doesn't exist. And so it kind of plays as this really cool way and play pattern of balancing those two effects together.
It's a nice balance of all those effects, whether you're talking about drawing cards, adding mana, exiling cards. Now a lot of them like make a treasure or something like that. But the fact that all the abilities cost 1, I think, is the greatest strength of this card. They didn't make the mistake of making one of these things cost 2.
Right. It's also like a good thing to like, if I am mana or color screwed early game, this thing draws me a card. Did I get the land I needed? No. Cool. Play it. Then I can exile to use it for the mana fixing, right? So it gives you that ability. And like with something like Emery that lets you rebuy it and you can play it in a blue, white, red or blue, black, red or Grixis version of the deck, I think like Jackolantern's really cool. And it's just like decent graveyard hate, right? You'll just get people with it. All right, next card is...
Next card.
We're now in the world of 2-drops. Blade Stitched Scav, blue and a black for a 2/3 zombie soldier. Other zombies you control get +1/+0. This is the first 2-mana zombie lord.
Okay.
It's in good colors. It's blue and black. And it is a 2-mana 2/3. It's 2 colors, which is what hurts it. And we've talked about how the 2-color lords are a little weird, but the blue-green merfolk one does see play. And that's +1/+1 versus +1/+0. But I think this card is almost more important than that card was. This card, there's no competition for this card. There's no 2-mana lord here.
I mean, Diagraph Captain at 3 in the original Innistrad is a great card. I love that card, but it was proven over time that at 3 mana it just wasn't enough. And so it's always a little weird when you talk about 2-mana lords tribally, right? We've talked about this many, many, many times on the show. Just because you have one, or you have like a redundancy of 2-mana lords in a particular tribe, doesn't necessarily mean the deck will pick up steam any more than, say, a competing tribal deck. There's a lot of them now, right?
Sure.
And in the last few years, we've seen even more of them. But I do think that the fact that it has 3 toughness on its own anyway at 2 power is such a strong place for this card to start, because if it pairs with any other lord, with any other way of beefing it, now you're getting it out of lightning bolt territory on its own. It's not a 2/2 for 2. It potentially becomes a 3/4 if you have just any other proper anthem.
Right. Any of the 3-drop zombie. Yeah, like the fact that this curves really well, or you play, like, there's so many good 1-drops, right? You're going to be playing 12 to 16 1-drops in the deck in zombies, that then follows up by this 2-drop, which is great, and then can be followed up by a 3-drop lord that pumps both of these out of lightning bolt range and makes all of your threats really strong. Not to mention pumping your zombie tokens if you have them. I think this is definitely of the list of 2-mana multicolor lords in a tribe that could use this better than in other places.
I mean, think about for a second the fact that this card, in standard, you're going to be able to attack for 3 on turn 2 with Champion of the Perished. That's in standard, right?
Right.
Without any cleverness or add-ons. So I think this card's pretty good.
Yeah.
This to me feels a lot like the way that we watched Rogues take off when we had all the different ones get printed, and how good that was, especially the 2-mana flash guy. This to me feels like a very, very similar kind of thing that I think Blue Black's going to get a big time boost. I think it's going to be very good.
Yep. Bloodthirsty Adversary, 1 and a red for creature vampire 2/2 haste. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 and a red any number of times. So it is multi-kicker, but kind of. When you play the cost 1 or more times, put that many +1/+1 counters on Bloodthirsty Adversary, then exile up to that many cards, instants, and or sorceries with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard and copy them. You may cast any of the copies without paying their mana costs. Now, a few interesting things. This works slightly different than multi-kicker, right? And there's a lot of work that's been talked about these cards, because this enters the play and then you get to activate it. So you can activate this off of, you don't have to cast it, right? It can be activated off of a blink effect. It can be activated off of a Aether Vial effect, right? So there's different ways to do that. 2, this is castable in a Luros deck. Right.
Yep,
this because by being 2 mana, that's a big value. So it plays a lot like Goblin Dark Dwellers, right? As far as an ability goes, it's a Goblin Dark Dwellers that, instead of Menace being a 4/4, it's a 3/3 haste, which I would argue is better. And I've realized that I've now been on the internet and gotten arguments where people disagree with that statement. But I think Menace is a useless ability unless you're unlimited, and I think haste is a good ability all the time, regardless of 4/4 versus 3/3. Sometimes in the late game, it'll be a 5/5 or it'll be a 4/4 haste, right? When you're able to cast it if you draw in the late game. And then there are going to be many a time where you play it as just a 2-mana 2/2 that attacks, right? But at 5,
I mean, the thing about this card that's very good is that, there are certainly situations where in games of Modern, the game stalls out a little bit.
Sure.
And you are top decking, and maybe one person's just waiting to get in, they can't get around the thing, and there's totally a world with this card where you just have a bunch of burn spells in your graveyard and you end up casting this for 8 mana.
Yep.
You just cast it for 8. It's a late top deck. And because you put that many plus, so if you did that, you'd get to cast 2 spells out of your graveyard. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a 4/4, and you would do, let's just assume, 2 lightning bolts. So 6. So you'd have a 10 damage between 2 lightning bolts and a 4/4 haste in play.
It
off a
fits
top
the
deck.
bill. Like, I know this whole cycle of cards does of being good early and good late. And granted, like, I don't ever want to think about casting an 8-drop in a deck that's trying to kill you with lightning bolt. That doesn't really make any sense to me. But I do know that the reality of this card and its value late in the game is pretty versatile. There's a lot this can do. And it being a 2/2 haste for 2 is a strong enough effect on its own. So yeah, I think this card's the real deal.
Think like mid game where like you cast a Luros, they killed Lurus, however people say it. People are gonna comment. It like you cast this late game after they already killed your Lurus, and you're able to cast this, grabbing a call against command, K command from your graveyard that you cast earlier to buy back Luros, to then recast Luros, and then you can then cast this from your graveyard if they blocked it off of the haste. You know, like they work so well together. I think it's really cool. Yeah, I think these guys are more powerful than people are giving credit to them. The next one I want to talk about is the white one, which is Interpret Adversary. It's a 3/1 for 2, 1 and a white, and lifelink, and it gets +1/+1 counters, and for each +1/+1 counter, other creatures you control get +1/+1.
That's really good. I like this card a lot. So you're telling me that this is a 4-mana 4/2 lifelink anthem creature. That's what this reads. It's either a 2-mana 3/1 lifelink, which is a pretty good rate to begin with. I'm not displeased with that anyway. Sure. I mean, I wouldn't cast this card as a 2-mana 3/1 lifelink most of the time.
But sometimes you would. Against some matchups, you'll play it and be like, you know what? I need a blocker. I need a 3/1 that comes down, gains me some life against burn, and kills this Ragavan.
Much in the same way that Gideon from Battle for Zendikar, I think it was Battle for Zendikar, Emblem Gideon for 4 would come down and just immediately make an emblem. That was just like what he did most of the time. This feels kind of similar in some ways. Now, spending 4 mana obviously on a creature that'll just get lightning bolted a lot of the time, or can still get pushed. That's fine. But I do think this card is a really nice curve topper. The human deck doesn't really want this at 4, but it's still a really nice option for that.
I disagree, because you can Coco into this and still pay. Like on turn 6, you can Coco into this and pay the 2 to make it a 4/2. Right, like that's insane. The fact that
that's a good point. It's a good point actually that this thing costs 2, and in that sense, because that now you can take advantage of a lot of stuff with it. Like if you ended up playing this card in like a more of like a Mardu type of shell, you could claim fame this into play. You could play for 1, then you could pay the ability once or even multiple times.
Well, like think of a claim fame on turn 5, right? Like 1 mana claim. Pump this. I guess you'd pump it twice. You always pump it, but like there's a world where maybe you fame them, and so you swing with a 6/3 lifelinker, just to like with haste, right? So like, and sometimes that'll just win you the game. So yeah, I think
it's a good creature type too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're all good creature types. Like the red one's a vampire, the white one's a human, the blue one's a spirit, the black one's a vampire or a zombie, and the green one's a werewolf. The spirit is the next one I want to talk to. This is probably the worst of the cycle, but even then, first off, I'm gonna say a few words, and you're going to love this card without any other words. It's 1 and a blue for a 2/1 flash flyer.
I mean, I'm so in on this card already. It's just like another one of these cards. It's like my favorite type of card.
I know, when I saw it, I was like, all that's going to matter is those things. So it's a spirit. And then when a spectral adversary enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a blue any number of times. When you do, pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So it becomes a bigger flyer as time goes on. And then phase out that many other target artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So it allows you to fog if you need to, right? If there's like 1 or 2 creatures you need to not die to that turn, you can fog them out. It allows you to also like move blockers out of the way if you need to get in. And it also lets you counter removal spells. You're able to save your things from board wipes or removal spells or targeted removal that you need to protect. And even stuff like Spell Queller doesn't give the player the card back because it's not dying, right? So it'll leave play, but then when it comes back, it still has the card exiled.
Yeah, that's really strong. This card's friggin' sweet. I mean, it's scalable, right? It's just so much design that is so focused on this idea now, which is that they want cards that are pretty good early and are really good late. And multi-kicker is obviously something we had seen in the past, but it feels like the front half of a lot of these cards is pretty strong. little stronger than the old multi-kicker cards.
Next card is Cathar Commando, 1 and a white for a 3/1 flash for 1 mana, human soldier. So 3/1 flash, human soldier for 2. You may pay 1 and sacrifice it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So it's for 3 mana disenchant or 2 mana flash 3/1 that can be used later to destroy artifacts and enchantments. I think this is just interesting because it's so versatile, right? Like in a world where maybe humans just wants cheaper artifact removal on one of its creatures, if artifact decks become really strong, or enchantment decks, more importantly, I think become really strong, this is a great option as a way to fight that in the main deck, because it's always going to be generically good, and then sometimes it's going to be insane. I think it's a little below the power level, but I do think it's close.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like there's so many options that are doing this nowadays. I don't think it just having flash is going to get the job done, but this will be a limited all-star for sure.
Yeah. The other thing is that the fact that it works really well with stuff like Luros, right? Like it's probably one of the best creature artifact removal spells, just because you're able to replay it a bunch of times in few different ways in the format is another thing I like about it. But yeah. Next card, Denic Pious Apprentice. Blue, white, 2/3. Legendary creature, human soldier, lifelink. Creature cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. You can pay 2 white, blue, disturb. It's a flying 3/2. When 1 or more creature cards are put into graveyards from anywhere, investigate. This ability only triggers once each turn. So on the front side, it's just a 2 mana lifelink graveyard hate card. Or graveyard protection card, if you would want to protect specific cards from targeted removal. And then on the back end, it starts becoming an investigate engine. There's also not infinite mana, but like decent mana engines where there's a card that like whenever whenever you sacrifice a clue token, do a thing. I think it's a mill 3 cards, and then there's whenever you mill a creature. Or no, it's whenever a creature enters your graveyard. No, that's what this does. I forget what the other 2 combos are. I believe one of them is if you just have this and the sacrifice tap. Sorry, Grinding Station. This plus Grinding Station. Sacrifice an artifact. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into their graveyard. Plus Denic. If you hit a creature, you just get clue tokens. So you're able to like kind of self-mill yourself pretty quickly in a cool way. And then the other card is...
Grinding Station's like pretty expensive, if I remember correctly.
It's 2 mana.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, am I thinking of Summoning Station costs 7? Is that what it is?
You're thinking of Salvaging Station,
Salvaging
which is a card
Station costs 7.
I love. But yeah, Grinding Station is 2 for an artifact. Tap it, sacrifice an artifact. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into her graveyard. Oh, whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Grinding Station. And then with Denic, it allows you to do that like twice a turn. So you can kind of be really efficient with Grinding Station and Denic, which is a cool kind of combo. All right. Yeah, but otherwise it's a 2 mana, 2/3, legendary creature, lifelink, protect your things, human. Kind of a bunch of different abilities. That are really powerful.
I think I look at this card and I don't really think modern. I think commanders. To be honest with you, it's a good design, but
you don't think a human that's a 2/3 for 2 that protects graveyards, and then if it dies, you get a flying 3/2 that draws you cards is good in modern?
I don't think it's bad. I think the truth is that I think
this guy's just okay in Commander. I think this is like much more of a constructed playable card. I think this is legendary because they didn't want to have multiple cards of this in play.
I mean, it prevents like definitely a lot of like, you know, it's an anti-snapcaster card. It like definitely does some stuff like that. It allows you to. It's good because
call against commands.
Yeah. I don't think this card's bad or anything like that. I look at it and I imagine that there are a lot of things that if you're talking about humans that are fighting for the 2-drop slot. So I'm wondering what deck this ends up playing in that is really interested in taking advantage of the back half, I guess. But it's a cool card, right? I'm glad we're talking about it.
Heirloom Mirror, 1 and a black artifact, tap 1, pay 1 life, discard a card, draw a card, mill a card, then put a ritual counter on Heirloom Mirror. Then if it has 3 or more ritual counters on it, remove them and transform it, activate as a sorcery. It is then a flying 4/4, exile target creature from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on it. But ostensibly, it's a discard outlet for 2 mana that draws you a card and mills you a card. So in some ways, if your deck is built correctly, draws you 2 cards and then creates a 4/4 flyer for 2 mana. I think it's just a lot of work to make this card happen. So I don't think it's going to see play in Modern, though I do think it was like almost there. I think if it like didn't cost a mana to tap it, or if the demon was a 6/6 and didn't have the ability, it would have gotten there. But it's just like a bunch of different little things that make it not worth it.
What was the name of that card? I feel like you loved this card, the black one. You mill a card, discard a card.
1 black. This card's underrated. And is
something
is way better.
Concoction or something like that.
Yeah, Sinister Concoction. 1 black, 1 black for a enchantment, and then you can pay 1 black, sacrifice it. You mill a card, destroy target creature, and discard a card, I think is its abilities. And like, love that card. Anytime you want to discard outlet and removable spell.
Sinister Concoction. So it's one. Yeah, that's an Alex Kessler special.
All right. Next card is Malevolent Hermit. 1 in a blue, 2/1. Human wizard, disturb, 2 in a blue. But you may pay 1, sacrifice it to counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3. And then the flip side for 3 mana is a 2/2 flyer. Non-creature spells you control can't be countered.
Yeah, this card's pretty sweet. I like this card for several reasons. Number one, I have always been a fan of the Spike-Tail Drakeling, that type of card. I'm always a fan of those. I think that's the good one, right? Hatchling is the 2-mana one, and Drake is the 5-mana one. But Drakeling, the 3-mana one, is the good one because it's counter unless they pay 2. This is negate unless they pay 3 for only a blue, which is a pretty strong way to start. Like there's probably, it's not in the humans deck. Like that's definitely not the card. That's not the deck that this plays in. Maybe it's in a wizard's deck I'm not thinking of. What probably it is this is in some sort of a tempo permission based deck that I can't even imagine yet. Because when it comes back, what it means is now your permission spells can't be countered, which is sick, and you have an evasive threat.
Yeah,
so
I think it's a wizard card more than a human card, right? Like the fact that like wizard decks generally are instant and sorcery plus creature style decks. Like you're playing with all 3 and it works there. Plus it can be a tempo play. I agree though that like, it comes back as a 3-mana 2/2 flyer from the graveyard is really good.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I don't know where it'll fit, but this card to me feels like there's an important card in a deck that'll be dope.
I also like this card in decks that want to like graveyard based combo decks. Like decks that do self mill can get this into your graveyard, because being able to like have this with your looting effects or your self mill that then you can cast it the turn before,
protect your non-creature
the turn before you go, and they either have to remove this creature or you win on your next turn is like pretty dope against some things. And the fact that like it also like gets around any, like if they had like a negate effect, right, or this is like a great answer to force negation decks as a sideboard card. You just play this, and if you're a deck that is scared of force negation, this is a great card to side in against control decks, because they either have to remove this spell or you're going to win with it at some point. It creates an inevitability engine for you that I really like.
Agreed.
Next card is
Get Old Stick Fingers is our next card here.
X black green. I thought it was Sticky Fingers until this moment, but legendary creature horror. When you cast a spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. Put all creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard, then put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Right now, in Modern, because like the to understand the play pattern, the way this card works is you cast this for X, and X is equal to the exact amount of other creatures in your deck, and it reveals all of them and puts them into play. So you're not playing this card as like a thing that's going to value get you like, oh, I cast it for 4 and I'll get 2 creatures of choice. I'm literally playing with only 2 cards in my deck that this is going to find. And when it finds them, I win because it's a combo. And so right now, the best stuff involves somehow getting a Necrotic Ooze back into play and putting different things in your graveyard with Necrotic Ooze. But that being said, there are ways to win with this card that could be printed in the future. And there are stuff in Legacy and Vintage and Commander that let you just instantly win with the card with this by casting it from your deck. So one day there will be a weird combo of creature cards you need in your graveyard that a 4-mana Entomb creature putting it into play that's gold, so it can be found with Glittering Wish, or legendary tutors, so you could get away with just playing one of them, is going to be good enough to murder some people.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like maybe I'm missing something on this, but you have to play, if you want that to be your deck, you're playing multiples of this card. You have to pay X more than like 1 if you want to get multiple cards into your graveyard. And so how much are you casting this for? 6.
Right now, if you cast it for 5 and you're only playing one old stick fingers, so you just play other cards to go Find It, Glittering Wish, and the Legendary Tutor, the 2 mana find a legendary creature.
Time of need.
So you can only play with, you could just play with the one of them, and then you find the other 2 creatures and you just win, right?
Okay, 5 so you have enough tutors and they're non-creature, and that's fair. That's cool. Well, I'll be excited to see those decks work. That sounds fun.
The other one is like, you just make a lot of mana, right? Put it in a deck that ramps that gets there. But that's how I would do it. Smoldering Egg, 1 red, 0/4 defender. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a number of ember counters onto it. Then if you if it has 7 counters, you flip it, and it is a 4/4 flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it Ashmouth Dragon deals 2 damage to any target. People have brought this up. This isn't the blue one from the last set.
Blue one from the last set. What, Murktide Regent? Who are you talking about?
0/4 wall that when you cast 8 spells, you get like a Merit Liege on the other side.
Oh, not from the last set. You mean from
the last Innistrad set?
Eldritch Moon. Thing in the Ice.
Yeah, Thing in the Ice. This is not Thing in the Ice. I wish it was, but it's close. It's cool. I'm glad this exists, and it'll be fun in Standard and other places, but I think Thing in the Ice is just better than this card.
Well, because it's equal to the amount of mana spent to cast the spell, so you can't cheat your way into the counters is one thing. Lava Dart, for instance, is not going to get a counter on this, right?
But other than it's also easier, right? Because you can cast 2 spells, and it now is flipping.
2 bigger spells, you mean?
Well, but like a 3-drop and a 3, like a 3, like 2 3-drop instants and sorceries, right? You can get there like a Call Against Command followed by another one, or you can play war. You don't have to be like trying to get them with like 0-drop spells and turboing it out. You can be more lazy with it, I guess.
You can mill yourself in a Grixis deck with Kolaghan's Command to get back your Smoldering Eggs, and then that triggers your other Smoldering Eggs. They're not legendary, and then all of your sweet spells, once it flips, are just like, I win the game spells. Yeah, that seems really fun. I'm all about it. I mean, it does seem like it's competing with like Phoenix and like, Lich and like, or Demi-Lich, whatever that card's called.
Which did just just 5-0 a modern tournament. So we'll talk about those cards in a second. Let's go to the next card. Suspicious Stowaway. 1 in a blue, human rogue werewolf, 1/1, cannot be blocked. When it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, then discard a card. So it's daybound side, and it's daybound. On its daybound side, it acts very similar to the shadow card. What's it?
Yeah, Looter Ilkor.
Looter Ilkor. But once it flips, once you cast 2 spells a turn, pretty easy to do. Or if you like untap, not casting a spell, holding up counter magic, it now becomes a 2/1 that can't be blocked. And when it does damage, you draw a card.
Oh, this card is all me. I love this card. I will play this card until the day I die. So it's a looter on the front side that lets you hold up counter magic to then flip on the back side and become a 2/1 that draws a card every time it does damage and can't be blocked. I think this card's really good. I think it's maybe just weak enough where it won't see play in Modern. It's just like, it's almost not good enough, but like there are versions that it's insane. Isn't this card with like Curious Obsession and Ghostly Pilferer and counter magic just like the bee's knees?
I mean,
isn't that like what you just like turn 2, cast one of your creatures with counter, free counter magic? I guess you can't cast Force of Negation on your turn, so if they kill it on your turn, then you're just tapping out. But like putting a Curious Obsession on this card and then holding up in counter mat, but you know what I'm saying? And then it flips, and like now you're telling me that I'm attacking you with a 3/2 can't be blocked, that I draw 2 cards every time it connects. That seems pretty good to me.
Yeah. I think like this could be a thing. I think it's a little weak, but it's like a fun tempo deck for sure. Yeah, I think this card's significantly better than Delver of Secrets in Modern. I will say that.
I'll never give in.
Next card, we're going to talk about Triscodeca. 1 in a blue for a 1/3. You have no maximum hand size. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. 3 in a blue, draw a card. Here's the deal. I don't know how insane it is to just get exactly 13 cards in your hand.
Well, at this point, let's just check the quick price on Training Grounds. Where are we at? Where have we gotten to in the insane world of Training Grounds?
$40 probably, right?
Probably more. I mean, Training Grounds was like it's only $33. Okay. Did it ever get a reprint? I feel like it still doesn't have one.
No, it didn't.
Yeah. So that's the first thing I think of when I look at this card. Controlling 13 cards it's a difficult thing to do. You can draw cards, certainly, but it's difficult to do.
It's hard to do, but it's only hard to do if you have to do that and then also figure out how to win.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like if your whole game plan is just get to 13 cards somehow. I don't know. I think this card is definitely fringe because you also need to get to it. Though you are drawing a lot of cards in this deck, but like playing like a Howling Mine deck where this is a card that's helping you get to 13 cards and then protecting it with counter magic. Like this card like very easily lets you play like a cool Drago style deck that Modern hasn't really seen before because you never have to win. There's no win. This is the win condition. You just have to count to 13 and get to your turn with the sugar on the stack and play enough maybe free spells that you're able to like discard cards. I don't know. Yeah, I think this card's this is a card that I would have a lot of fun playing to try and win with. Though
it certainly seems like a cool win condition type of card. It is a wizard, which means the wizard cycling card. What's that card that I used to love so much? From I used to always try to play this card from Future Sight. Vidalcan Aether Mage.
Oh yeah, you can tutor for it. This wizard cycling.
The wizard cycling. The 3-drop instant speed wizard cycler gets this card into your hand. And I don't know if is there a better wizard tutor or creature tutor at instant speed that specifically gets the one you want? I'm trying to think if there is.
I don't think so. I don't even know if you need the tutor for it though. Like if you just play 4 of these and your game plan is to draw as many cards as possible, you will draw at least one of them, if not 2.
There's probably clever ways to fill your hand, and there's probably really interesting ways you could do it. Because here's the truth: you can certainly draw a lot of cards. Drawing a lot of cards to be able to get to 13 cards between the end of a turn and a draw step. I guess you have no maximum hand size when this is down, but as soon as this comes down, they're going to kill it. So you're only going to have a short window.
Yeah, I I'm just like imagining play like 4 of these, every free counter magic spell you can play. And like Blue Sun Zeniths and Fofs and like just different good like quantity over quality card draw spells and counter magic and just like be like
could this be a loam? Could this be a loam card?
Loam does work with this. Like you draw 3 cards off of Loam. I don't know exactly how good it is with that just because it doesn't do anything, but like you do get to your land drops. I don't know. I like it. It might just be too slow, but I think it would be cute. I think it's a cute deck.
I mean, yeah, it's certainly on the top list of probably the 5 or 10 cards in the set that I'm the most excited by. So, I sign off.
Next card.
Oh, snap. I just realized something thinking about other cards in the set that I like. Our little green guy who gets counters on him every time you remove a card from your graveyard.
Yeah, Willowgeist.
Yeah, that guy. That's a really convenient way to play with... the one ascendancy that I like so much, the blue-green one. It gets a counter every time you put a counter on a creature. It's like a really incidental way to get counters on creatures.
Sure. Simic Ascendancy?
Yeah, like there's like a Simic Ascendancy deck that in my mind is like that card plus what's his name? Scavenging Ooze. And like,
yep.
Just like going ham on manual graveyard removal to just build up your Ascendancy and just win.
Sure.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Next card is the black one in the cycle of the advisories. 1 in a black, 2/3 Death Touch zombie. At his end of his battlefield, made two in a black any number of times, and you get decayed zombies for that. I think the big thing here is a 2-mana 2/3 zombie kills pretty much most things that are trying to attack you in a format, which is nice. I wish it had flying to block Murktide Regent. I think that's the big thing that's hurting it is Murktide Regent just doesn't care that this card exists, because otherwise the ability for zombies to like early game play or zombies or Luros decks to play early game a 2/3 for 2 that then late game can be 6 power, right? Like it starts becoming like a Grave Titan over time. So I do think that's, and we'll talk about Grave Titan 2.0 eventually, but yeah, I think this is the least good of the main ones for Modern, but maybe better in decks like Standard or Historic.
I think this card is pretty cool. It's not that strong, though. The issue with this card is that the most reasonable way to cast this is either the 2-mana way, which you just talked about, which is pretty good, or it's the 5-mana way. That's the 2 things you're going to do the most often. And if you're telling me that for 5 mana, I'm getting a 3/4 Death Touch zombie that makes me a dinky zombie token, that's not really good enough.
Right. I actually think the two best versions of this are the 2 mana version and the 10 mana version.
Okay, gotcha.
Or the 11 mana version, right? Like I don't think I ever want to pay this for 5. Sometimes I will, but what I do want to have this for is like I use Nykthos to tap for 12 mana and cast this and use it as like an overrun effect late game if I top deck it, that like all other times in the game I'm paying it as a 2 mana 2/3 death touch that I can rebuy with cards like Luros or Claim Fame.
The problem is that in Modern, that each turn of the game becomes less and less significant. So unless you're ramping out,
except that I'm arguing that a 2 mana 2/3 is fine in a zombie deck.
Totally. So what I'm saying is I don't mind the 2 mana 2/3 version. I'm saying the most common souped up version you'll probably ever see is going to be the 5 mana version. Let's just be honest. That's the top end of like a mid-range card, because beyond that you have to spend 8. How many things can you think of that are hard cast for 8?
I disagree with that, actually. I think more games in Modern go to the point where players have 8 or more mana. They're just like, you can never count on that happening. And any card that can only be good in those situations is terrible. But if you have a card that's great in that situation, that's good in every other, like the normal 2 mana versions. Yeah. That starts being interesting to me, right? Like I like that scalability effect. I agree though that this, like, I think the other ones are better, but
yeah,
it's close. Vampire Socialite, red and a black, 2/2 menace. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent lost life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each other vampire you control.
I like that.
As long as an opponent lost life this turn, each other vampire you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter. So opponent loses life. When you play this, every vampire you gets a +1/+1 counter. And then from that point on, as long as your opponent has lost life, future vampires also enter with those counters. So it's a lord on both ends. It plays a lot like Thalia's Lieutenant, which has seen a ton of Modern play. It's like a vampire Thalia's Lieutenant. I think this card is also not legendary, which is nice because you can play multiples of them, especially with the next set coming out. This card feels a little planty. Like, I don't think Vampires is quite there yet, but I think this gets there. And Vampires has a lot of really powerful support that it has been printed already, that it's just missing a few different pieces, and I think this helps.
Yeah, this card's pretty good, man. This card's pretty good. I gotta say, it's aggressive. The casting cost is right. It is a lot like Thalia's Lieutenant, and Thalia's Lieutenant is one of the key cards that push humans into actual prominence. I like this card a lot. Yep, I can see this working with any number of different vampire strategies. But
and it's lose life, so like Blood Artist works, right? The fact that Blood Artist is a vampire is such a boon to this card.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are you doing with your vampire deck if they're not losing life at return?
Right,
that's the whole point. So it's going to trigger most of the time, and yeah, that's pretty powerful.
I think the deck is missing 1-drops. Like there needs to be, but it has the 1-drop that you can discard a card if you sacrifice it. That has menace. It has the Vulcanwrath Aristocrat. So there are some 1-drop vampires. They're never been quite good enough, but maybe between this and the next set.
They used to always print like Pulse Tracker and cards like that, where you'd be like, can I make this work?
Well, there's
never quite got
there's
there.
like the 1 mana 2/1 vampire that if you discard a card, cards have like vampire cards have madness now.
Yeah.
Like
fucking Wrath.
There's like
maybe
stuff that's close, but I think that's where it's really hurting is that 1-drop slot.
Yeah, you need a better one.
If we get 1 or 2 red or black 1 mana vampires in the next set that are good, I think this card jumps up to being like a deck. Adeline, Replensant Cathar, 1 white around the 3-drops, 1 white, X4, human knight, legendary creature, vigilance. Its power is equal to the number of creatures you control. When you attack, for each opponent, create a 1/1 white human creature token that's tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker you control. This was brought up as one of the cards people were excited for. It's kind of a less expensive knight of Bladehold, hero Bladehold. I'm not here on it. This was something people brought up. I think it's like there is a situation where this is like a 6/4 for 3 that then makes tokens every time it attacks. So it's not the worst. And vigilance isn't a terrible idea. I think for 3 mana, this doesn't do enough.
It's a 1/1 white human creature token that's tapped and attacking. And this doesn't have Battlecry or any way to anthem that card. So it's the difference is that for 3 mana, this thing can be bigger. And it can make 1 versus for 4 mana, this thing pumps the 2 creatures that it makes every time it attacks. And you don't care how big the 1 creature is because they'll kill it if they can anyway.
What's the 3 mana that makes 1/1 monks that have prowess?
Monastery Mentor.
Like Monastery Mentor is not a playable card in Modern. I don't know how Adeline Repleasant Cathar is.
No. And Monastery Mentor is a card that people have a great deal of affection for, that people have tried to make work a million times. It's borderline playable. I mean, it's a fringe card, but this has better options. So yeah,
yep. I agree. Next card is Augur of Autumn. 1 green, 2/3. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play land cards from the top of your library. And Coven, as long as you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. This card is interesting. It doesn't have the life gain, and it is not a 2/4. So that is 2 things it's missing from Corsair Crewfix. Being a 2/4, being lightning bolt dodging 2/4 blocker for 3 was always relevant, and the life gain was an important feature, especially with fetch lands off of landfall. But on the other hand, being able to cast creature spells off the top of your library pretty easily makes this start becoming like a pretty efficient card draw engine. And the fact that it doesn't reveal your deck to your opponent, so you can look at it. And in Modern with fetch lands, one of the reasons Corsair is good with fetch lands is because you can use fetch lands as a reset the top of your library. So
yeah, this card's pretty good, man. I have to say, it is debatable how it compares to Corsair. The 2/4 is significant, but my gut tells me on this one, in the right build, this card has more gas and is a more turbo card in the deck than Corsair is. Corsair feels like it might be pound for pound a little more fair, right? Like I feel like Corsair might be the all-around card that would end up in a deck like Jund in certain situations, more so than Augur. But Augur feels like it's the card that if you construct the deck around this, is going to be the turbo card. It's not an Elves piece, but when I read this card, it feels like a card that's going to end up in a deck that plays a bit like Elves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair. I think like in Elves, this is really interesting, right? In some ways, it acts as whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card.
Yeah, well, I was saying I don't think that Elves wants this because Elves is so competitive in the slot, but I think that a deck that plays and functions a bit like Elves will be excited to have this.
Like a Druid's deck?
Something like
Druid
that.
tribal? Because it is a Druid, right? It's a human Druid. So like you could do Druid tribal. That would be cool. I'd be down. Next card is Pauper Stitcher. 2 and a blue, human wizard. 2/3. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. An ability that has classically been very good. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more creature tokens, you flip it. Creature tokens you control lose all abilities and come 3/3. So they lose Decayed. It made 3/3 tokens now instead of 2/2. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may transform it back.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you cast an instant sorcery, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. So here's the issue with this. Monastery Mentor, we just mentioned a second ago, and Monastery Mentor is not a card people actually play. It's a fringe fan favorite people always try to make work. It makes creatures with prowess, I think. I think they all have prowess. It makes 1/1s with prowess.
And it's also non-creature spells, so it includes Bobble.
Yeah, and that's already one people. I do think that flipping and making them into 3/3s is good, but they lose all abilities. So like in the deck that takes advantage of Monastery Mentor, in theory, the prowess tokens are better than these creatures would be at 3/3 anyway. So play them both, maybe? I don't know.
Sure. They like trigger together, and it is really good with the prowess tokens. Yeah, I don't hate that. As kind of like it's a redundant version of the effect.
Play rug with Pyromancer.
What I do like about this is if you play this and Pyromancer together, they combo together really well because 2 mana Pyromancer, 3 mana this, and then you just start casting free spells or whatever. And then when this flips, it turns all the elemental tokens into 3/3s. So it acts as an overrun effect to your 3/3s, and then also acts as a redundant piece to Young Pyromancer. I think that's where I'm most excited by it, is that effect. For sure.
Yeah, I think the issue there is just that, if you had 2 of these, if you had 2 creatures in that 2-drop slot that were really desirable to play, I think it'd be one thing. I just think it's really hard. That's the problem. That's why Monastery Mentor has always struggled so much, is that casting the 3-drop that doesn't do anything the turn you cast it is a big challenge. And that's the same situation that Stitcher is going to find itself in. Cool card, though. And, there's always room for exploration with it's powerful stuff we're talking about doing.
Right. All right, next card is Search Party Captain. 3 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. So 4 mana for a 2/2 human soldier. And when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. It's a white card. So that's interesting. The more important part is this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature you attacked with this turn. So it can be a 1 mana 2/2 white card that draws you a card. on ETB. Also, any card that has ETB in white that draws you a card is like a thing to talk about. Like Wall of Omens still sees play. This is a better than Wall of Omens in aggressive decks, right? Like this allows you to play a ETB matters, Restoration Angel, but like you're trying to actually attack your opponent and not block for them card. And getting a 1-mana 2/2 that draws you a card is already really good.
My gut tells me that the force of having to attack with multiple creatures to be able to get the payoff on this card is going to make it a little bit rickety to cast. You're going to be in situations where you're forced to take advantage of the attacking to try to get the cheaper cost. But I do think you're right. The thing I agree with you on 100% is the fact that it's when it enters the battlefield, draw a card is the biggest upside play here. So that even if you're not having to curve this thing out to make it just like a 1-mana 2/2 that draws you a card, it's still just fine to have. There are lots of decks that'll probably find a way to take advantage.
Yeah, like the nice thing is that when it's bad, it's good, right? Like early on, if you're playing a white aggressive deck, an aggro white deck, you're going to be able to attack with creatures and get it down to a 2-drop at least, right? Attacking with 2 creatures is not hard to do if you're trying to be aggressive. And then late game, if you draw it and you're in a situation where there's a board stall and you just have to cast something, it draws it's a cantrip for 4. Okay, it's late game. I'm no longer attacking, but at least I have this cantripping 2/2. The cool thing is also there is a version of this that just lets you cast like 3 of them in a turn, right? Like if I attack for 3 creatures on turn 3 and I play this and I draw another one, I play that and I draw another one, I've now like drawn 3 cards and played 3 of these guys.
It is fair that a 1-mana 2/2 that draws you a card is excellent, and there are situations where you're going to have multiples. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I won't poop on the idea too much. I think it's cool. I think next up we have.
I am close to my invitational card if I ever were to get one, being 1 white 0/1 draw a card flyer.
Oh, interesting. Just because it's cheap and you could like blink it and do all kinds of fun stuff with it.
Well, yeah, it would be like, it's really cool. Mostly it's just a fog, right? Like most of the time it's just like blocks a creature and dies, but like you can give it +1/+1 counters. It has evasion. You could equip stuff to it. I think it would be such a cool card. I'd even be down for 2-mana 0/1 flyer. I think it'd have to be a 0/2. Like if Ornithopter can be a 0/2 flyer for free, I don't know why white can't have a cantripping 1-mana white 0/1 flyer for 1.
You heard it here first, folks.
Give me that
someday
card.
The invitational ever happens. They don't do it anymore though.
If you win the world championship now, you get to do it. That's what that one red knight creature was one of them. And then
the fervent Cathar, that one?
Yeah, no, but Paulo got the flying 3 or the 3/1.
Oh yeah, that card's great.
Yep. Enduring Angel, 2 white. 3/3 Angel, flying double strike. You have hexproof. If your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel and your life total becomes 3. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. Flying, you have hexproof. Its power and toughness are each equal to your life total. And it attacks, whenever it attacks, double your life total. So it'll flip into a 3/3. It is a 5-mana card. It does cost triple white. You can't lose the turn you play it, which is nice, right? Like, and you having hexproof is nice. Like, so they can't like bolt you. Yeah. They can't attack you. You dodge any type of graveyard hate. It turns Liliana of the Veil off just as like a Liliana sideboard card. It's interesting. And then there's also, I've heard there's like combos with this and Ludovic, which is a card we'll talk about in a second, which like makes it so you can't lose the game as long as they can't kill a creature ever or something along those lines, because it keeps flipping back and forth.
I think this card's pretty sweet, actually. I like this card. It's a little beefy, definitely. The triple white is a little scary, but I do think it's pretty cool, and I do like that when it flips over, it doubles your life total. Like I think that's but then again, so you go from 3 to 6, it costs 5. Yeah, it's cool. It's just clunky. That's the only problem with it. It's just going to be a little bit.
It is a flying double strike. Like even if you don't get the other ability, like it's terrifying in play. I agree, it's clunky. I think there's it as a reanimation target is actually something that's a little interesting, right? Just like getting this into play. There was a while where that 4/6 you have hexproof Sphinx was a good reanimation target in Legacy, just because it did the same thing. So like being able to get this on turn 2 with persist. And then like it gets some matchups will just win you the game, right? Like,
I mean, it is to be fair though. It is just a 3/3 that's boltable. It doesn't have hexproof. And you just kill it.
Correct. I'm thinking, that's fair. Next card is Lord of the Forsaken. 4 black, 6/6, flying trample. You may pay a black to sacrifice another creature to have target player mill 3 cards. More importantly, you may pay 1 life to add 1. Colorless. Spend this mana only to cast spells from your graveyard.
This card's real sweet. I mean, what's interesting about this card is that it plays on. It's a throwback to Yawgmoth's Bargain on some level. There's some similarities and parallels to Yawgmoth's Bargain that, for people that don't know, it's from Urza's Destiny. It's black 4 for an enchantment that you can pay 1 life to add 1 black to your mana pool. And or no, it's Yawgmoth you draw cards on. What's the one I'm thinking of where you can pay? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm rambling. But the point is, the way that those older cards like that, with the big casting cost work, where you could funnel your life into some resource and you could dump your whole life total into doing something cool. It's the same thing with this card. The top half of the ability of sacking a creature to mill 3, while interesting, what I think of when I look at this card is getting like Devil's Play into my graveyard and paying 19 life to cast Devil's Play for 19.
Yeah, to me this feels like a Chatterstorm, Underworld Breach, the life gain storm card, Griselbrand knockoff option. I don't know what that looks like. I am not going to be the player in Magic to come up with how the right number of these cards all added together come up with something that wins you the game. But anytime I see something that can make 19 mana on turn 2,
yep,
it's interesting. I mean, that deck is like 4 colors, right? It's playing Underworld Breach. It's playing I guess you could play not blue-white looting. You could play just some of the other looting effects, but just the mono red stuff. But yeah, I think like there's a lot of different cards that love this that might can do something with it. Target player mills 3 cards and sacrifice another creature is also really good with Underworld Breach, because you can like play if what's the 2 mana for 1 black. When it enters the battlefield, make 3 mana.
2 mana for 1 black.
Isn't that a card? Like it plays Dark Ritual, like Priest of Gix or whatever.
Oh, Priest of Gix, the creature you're talking about.
Yeah, the creature. Like you can combo that with this and maybe something else that makes you mana and Underworld Breach to go infinite and like keep playing it again and again.
And Priest of Urabrask is also in.
That's red though, so like the ability costs 1 black. But yeah, I think like for basically in that combo, you for 1 life you're able to recast it with Underworld Breach again and again and again, because you can use the cards you mill with the other ability to go off. There's just like cool stuff. And it's a 6 mana 6/6 flying trample, so it also just like could kill a person.
Devil's Play is triple red from the graveyard. Damn. Okay, so you would have to win there. It gets really dicey colors wise. What was that cycle of spells that all had the double thing from the graveyard?
Increasing Vengeance.
Yeah, increasing. That's what they were called. Increasing Devotion, increasing Vengeance.
There's the blue one that mills too, which is cool.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Top X cards of the library, and then if it was cast from your graveyard, it's twice that many instead.
Sure.
So it's pretty good. You pay 19 life and you mill 38 cards from your graveyard.
It's definitely a card that I want to break. I don't know how to do it yet, but I feel like someone might figure it out.
Wait, Increasing Savagery, man. That's the one. The green one. Because you pay 7, and if it's cast from your graveyard, you put 10 +1/+1 counters on the creature.
Sure.
So you just put
you have a 16 flying trample.
Yeah, and the Forsaken just attacks for 16.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even cost you all your life.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think there's stuff to do. You can also just Devil's Play.
It's triple red, or Increasing Ambition, the black double demonic tutor.
Yeah.
From your graveyard,
that one's good.
Yeah, those are all pretty.
All of these are weird pieces that win you the game, right? And like we're not even talking about the Necrotic Ooze version of this, where you play Necrotic Ooze and then he just has these abilities and with them in the graveyard. So like there's. It feels like something. Necrotic Ooze also feels like at any moment it could just be broken. Or if they print a second one, people will try.
Yeah.
Tall Valar's Huntmaster. 4 green 6/6 human werewolf. When it enters the battlefield, create 2/2 green wolf creature tokens. Daybound. The Nightbound side, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, create 2/2 green wolf creature tokens. It's a 7/7, and another target werewolf or wolf fights target creature control for 4 mana. I think that's the least important ability. The more important is that this is a Grave Titan in green.
It's green Grave Titan. Yeah, I mean it's when it is only when it enters though. It's not when it attacks.
No. The backside is when it attacks.
Because you have to flip it first.
So you just don't cast the spell for a turn.
Yeah, well, I mean, Grave Titan makes 2, and then the next turn, just attacks.
Yeah. But black is a significantly harder color to cast a 6-drop than green.
True. That's fair. And this one you can. So wait, with Nightbound and Daybound, the way it works, it becomes night the next turn. So you can't. This will never come down as a pack leader.
Oh no,
it'll never be.
It can
if it's night.
If it's night. So if you can make it nighttime if you play any other card that makes it nighttime or daybound, and you're able to make it nightbound before casting this card, then it's actually just a 7/7 version of Grave Titan.
Got it.
Yep. The next card, and this is the last card for tonight, and then next week we will do Planeswalkers, enchantments, instants, and sorceries, I believe, and lands we'll be doing next week. All right, so the last card we're going to be talking today is Moonsilver Key. It's 2 for an artifact, 1 colorless, tap it, sacrifice it to search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability or a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Now, in Modern, there's definitely not a bulk of really, really good artifacts that can be used with this ability, though it does find stuff like the Great Henge. In other formats, it can find stuff. It used to be, honestly, what sucks is this card would be like such a shoo-in for Crank, Klein, Ironworks decks.
Yeah, Ironware, for sure.
I do think Eggs decks are actually close to being playable, and I think this card's like a shoo-in to be played there. Like they're missing like one card to be really push it across the edge. But yeah, I think.
I mean, there's interesting. There are interesting art cards that have certain abilities, like Lotus Bloom is a good example of a card, or like you were talking about it just a minute ago, but like some of the Moxes, whether you're talking about Mox Amber or you're talking about, well, Opal's gone now, but if you were the crazy that wanted to try to use the Suspend Mox,
sure. Well, I think the Suspend Lotus is the one that, like, in Eggs you would find, right?
Lotus Bloom.
Getting Lotus Bloom and guaranteeing it into your hand is like something to really talk towards. And there might be other combo pieces. I think like any creature that has a mana ability that's an artifact creature starts becoming interesting. We talked about it does find Peelypala.
Does indeed, and it also it's castable with Grand Architect. Grand Architect can on turn 3 come down, cast Moonsilver Key. Then the next turn, this can sacrifice. You have the mana then to get Peelypala into your hand, cast Peelypala with Grand Architect, and if you have mana open, now you're just protecting yourself to be able to make infinite mana the next turn. I've never seen anybody actually win in a Modern game with the Peelypala Grand Architect combo. It's been like my life's goal to make that work.
I think one of the reasons is that there's not been an actual playable tutor for Peelypala. There has been, like, the one thing that hurts it is, like, since Karn, the Great Creator, has existed, you could have done it, and if that wasn't going to do it, does this do it? But this 2 mana, like, I think Garn, the Great Creator, when you play it for 4 mana, you're just finding something better, right? Like, for 4 mana, you can get anything that wins you the game.
There's also the fact that what we talked about is true, which is that Architect casts this on its own with haste the turn it comes in. So the mana investment, if you're going to try to play this in the Architect deck, is like, there is no mana investment. This just Architect just comes down and now this card's in play, because it has haste to tap itself. And so if that's the case, that just means that now the next turn you've got all of your mana open to maneuver this however you need to. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it offers. It's an interesting tutor, and there's going to be more and more ways to kind of do stuff with it that I think will be interesting. I also like in other formats like Commander or like anything like Legacy. I think this card's insane, right? Because it finds Phyrexian Altar. It finds like way more powerful cards. It finds Crane Clan Ironworks, right? Like that I think is like a big win. So yeah, we'll see if it does anything in Modern, and keep an eye on it. All right, so that is it for today. We're gonna do the rest of the cards. So that's Planeswalkers, enchantments, instants, sorceries, and lands next week. This is where I think the bigger heaters, like already just like a short call out to Faithless Mending, which is just like blue-white Faithless Looting is like, in some ways is proving that Faithless Looting was too good for the format. The fact that a blue-white version of that card for 2 mana is already seeing significant play in the format is kind of proof that Faithless Looting was too good, but we'll be talking about that next week. So that's a little bit of a preview for then. As I said at the beginning of the cast, big thank you to our patrons. Y'all are the reason we're able to do this once a month. We're sorry we missed last week's episode, and we're back to our normal schedule. Thank you. Make sure to hit that like button if you got the trivia question or right or wrong or didn't even hear that part. We appreciate that as well. It really helps all the algorithm gods support us. And check out Battle Bosses, battlebosses.com. It was a game we kickstarted, and now you can buy it. It says pre-order on the website when we're recording this, but hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it'll just say buy now. We are still pre-ordering the deluxe edition, but the individual bosses you can just buy on our website, and we'll be shipping them out. We've already started backfilling Kickstarter backers. If you back the Kickstarter, thank you so much. Thanks for bearing with us. We launched our first Kickstarter on an extraordinarily complicated project right into a trade war followed by COVID. That's been a super big challenge, but we finally got past it and are finally shipping it to people. So we're super hyped, and the game's awesome. You can, check out Tappy's Twitter. She'll talk about how great it was and how she didn't think it would be, because demoing a game at a convention can be really boring, and people had a blast. So we're really hyped.
Yeah, it's really, really, really exciting, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. My last thing to shout out really quickly before we get out of here is that a couple weeks ago I mentioned this, but I just launched a brand new podcast. It's similar to an old podcast that I used to do that you actually were the guest on 3 or 4 times over the years. Andrew Guy and I used to talk about action movies and whatnot for years and years. This is called The Best and the Worst. We break down an actor, a filmography, a director, a franchise, and we break down through cinema science the best film and the worst film in that group. And we talk through all the different fun stuff. The first couple episodes have talked about best David Fincher films, best martial arts films, all things like that. It's been really fun. So check it out. It's called The Best and the Worst. It's available everybody. You can find podcasts or over on the Action Industries YouTube. And it's lots of movie talk.
Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you all next week. And shout out to everyone that supports us, like our patrons and our friends at TCG Player. You're all the best. Bye.
Bye, guys.